good afternoon, and very good afternoon. Welcome to the show, welcome to VUEGRAPHY, and welcome to another unscripted video. Yeah, actually, I don't script my video, and I don't have any teleprompt, so I can see what's written and just speak accordingly. Whatever you see on this channel, uh, talking to you guys is always coming from here live while I'm recording. So that's why my videos are more natural rather than scripted. So today's video is interesting. Every company, photography related, camera manufacturer, lens manufacturer, especially camera manufacturer, every camera manufacturing company usually say, buy this camera or go for this camera, buy new camera. Like any specific model, new model comes, buy that camera. The camera you should buy, camera you should own, camera you should go for. Okay, which makes sense. But none of the company or nobody tells you that this is the camera that you should not sell. Yep. Today's video is going to be about those cameras which you should not sell, or if you are thinking to sell, so do not sell it. Now, what are those cameras? I'm going to list all of them from every brand. Yeah, it's not about just Nikon or couple of. In this video, I'm going to talk about all those cameras which you must not sell. You must keep it if you own it. It means that if you don't own it, then you try to acquire it, because these cameras are so damn good, like really good. Okay, so what are those cameras? Let's start with Sony. Yeah, Sony. Sony are making bunch of cameras, crop sensor, full frame, vloggers, blah blah blah. They have different categories of camera, from low light, then medium number of pixels, then high resolution cameras. In the high resolution cameras, they started with 42 megapixel, then now they are at 61 megapixel. In the mid range are uh, same 24 megapixel, which now 33, 34 megapixel, something like that. Then they have low megapixel cameras, which are 12 megapixel camera. I'm talking about all these cameras full frame. They have crop sensor cameras, which is a 6000 series, which number of pixels are 24, 27, something like that. Then they have vlogging cameras, okay, which I can't remember the number of pixels, but among all these cameras, there are two cameras which are legendary. You should, if you own it, you should keep it. There is no point selling those cameras. Now, before I tell you these two cameras, or we have to consider how we are evaluating the camera. It's very easy. See, actually, it's not easy, but I'm trying to make it easy for you guys. In order to evaluate any camera, there are few checklists that you have to look for. First of all, the image quality. Okay, that's the number one. How good the output of the camera is, how good the SNR firmware, how good the colors, contrast, and ISO, high ISO capability, all these things. Even the colors are coming out from the cameras are really that good that you don't have to oversaturate in post processing. Okay, or the cameras are the output of the camera, it's so damn good even at high ISO that you don't have to worry about shooting in low light. You can easily go and shoot. Or the raw file is so flexible that even you try to stretch in post processing, pressing the highlights, pulling up the shadows, doing this and that, like you really crunching the raw file to a limit, but still raw file giving you so much flexibility in post processing. It means that that camera output is so damn good. because you can do whatever you like and still image is really holding itself so damn good, so very well, regardless what you are doing in post-processing. That's one of the symbol of having a very good camera. So it means that not only the output of the file, number of megapixels or whatever, so the output or the SNR firmware or the raw file, whatever you call it, that's the number one quality that you have to look for. But again, that's something that newcomers cannot evaluate until and unless you try the camera by yourself or you Google about it and you see a lot of guys, a lot of people, a lot of photographers talking good about the output of that particular camera. Then you should consider that. Okay, so number one. Number two, build quality. How good the build quality is. Okay, number three, buffer size. Buffer is really matters to some people, especially sports action wildlife. I'll tell you an example when it comes to buffer. Like for example, okay, I'll tell you example right away. For example, uh, Nikon D500 crop sensor camera, 20.9 megapixel, and then we have Z30, which is vlogging camera, 20.9 megapixel. Both are 20.9 megapixel. Both are crop sensor, but Z9 can do 11 frames per second. Not Z9, I'm sorry, Z30. Oh, let me start from the scratch. We have D500, 20.9 megapixel, and we have Z30, alright, which is 20.9 megapixel. Okay, both are crop sensor. The Z30 is vlogging camera. Okay, vlogging camera. So you make all this vlogging stuff, but it can do 11 frames per second, whereas D500 can do 10 frames per second. So on paper, Z30 has advantage over D500. 11 frames per second, 10 frames per second. But the buffer of Z30 is nothing. It's not even 20-30 frames, whereas D500 can easily go up to 200 frames. Yep. So the buffer size of D500 is much more deeper than Z30, even though the megapixels are the same, and even though the Z30 having high autofocus, animal high autofocus, and high frames per second, but still the buffer is not good. So for sports action wildlife, it's not ideal, despite of having animal high focus and all those high frames per second. It still is not good enough. D500 is still going to be a preferred choice for sports action wildlife. See, so that's one of the examples. So output, build quality, buffer size, and what else? Well, of course, ergonomics, handling, battery life. Okay, how many number of card slots you have. Okay, and what else we can do, and all these bunch of parameters, like which cannot tell you right at the beginning of your photography that that camera is really good on the long term or not. The thing is, the camera proves itself over a period of time. Imagine there is a camera which announced today. You cannot evaluate that camera just based on the spec sheets. You cannot evaluate it. Until unless you use it into the field and see how convenient that camera is. I just gave you the example of D500 and Z30. Even though Z30 is latest, D500 is old, but D500 was built around a circumstance or built around a core which makes it a very long, horse for a long run. That's why it's one of the legendary camera from Nikon, D500. That's just one example. Of course, I was talking about Sony cameras, and there were two cameras from Sony which are, you should not sell it. I just mentioned a bunch of attributes that okay, the camera which you should not sell based on having this, these parameters: number of megapixel, the output, high ISO capability, number of frames per second, video capability, video specs, Yeah, I didn't mention video, but video is also there. How good the autofocus is, how flexible the raw files are, number of card slots, deep buffer, and all that. So there's a whole list of, you know, checklist list which you have to take and see that each camera, regardless if it's old, current, or new ones, are these checklists filled by all these cameras or not. So you cannot evaluate the camera based on the current release or based on the specs. The camera must have proven itself over the period of time. Okay, so let's start with the list. First, Sony. There are two cameras from Sony, all right, which are the best. Number one, A7 III. Sony A7 III is really proven itself over the period of time. Like if you know how to use the camera, you don't need to upgrade to A7 IV. Despite A7 IV having really good, number of megapixel or artificial intelligence autofocus algorithm built into it, but still the A7 III proved itself over the period of time because it was built around a core which helps the videographer, photographer to use it for almost everything. And still, people prefer to have A7 III. Second camera from Sony is A7R III. Now, why A7R III? Why not A7R4 or A7R5? The reason A7R4 and R5 is they increase the megapixel from 42 to 61. So their performance, high ISO capability gets down despite of having artificial intelligence and everything. But the A7R III still holds the best high megapixel camera with the best low light performance. Yes, what happens usually, number of megapixel increases, the low light performance or high ISO capability decreases. But Sony A7R III is the only camera, according to my limited knowledge, which still holds its value. Even though you shoot at high ISO, still the output of that file contains less noise in compared to other competitors. Similar around 42, 45 or 50 megapixel. So that's one of the reasons I think Sony A7R III is, if you own it, you should not sell it. So Sony A7 III and A7R III. These are the two cameras which, if you own it, do not sell it. Okay. Now I'll talk about Canon. By the way, in this video, I'm talking about both mirrorless and the DSLR, okay? So Sony doesn't make any DSLR, so I was just talking about the mirrorless only. Now let's talk about Canon. Canon have bunch of legendary cameras, and number one is 5D Mark II. That camera is a legend in in the world of photography. When it comes to portrait, one of the camera which produce best skin tones, one of the camera which are having the high megapixel, back 14 years ago 21 megapixel was huge, and it was the only camera that was having video capability 14 years ago. So if you own it, there is no point to upgrade it or sell it. So Canon 5D Mark II, legendary camera. If you own it, do not sell it, because still one of the best camera to take pictures or even make a simple recording video. You can record videos using that camera. Okay, so that being said, what's the next? Even though the 5D Mark III came, 5D Mark IV came, but 5D Mark II is still the legend based on what it can do at that time, and of course the price point is also included. By the way, okay. So the lower the price, uh, keeping all these uh, checklist that camera can do with low price, it's a good bargain. So Canon 5D Mark II checks on a lot of areas. 5D Mark III is also a good thing, but I don't think 5D Mark IV you should go for it, or it doesn't qualify according to my limited knowledge. Now when it comes to mirrorless, which camera you should have for a long period of time and you should not sell it. When it comes to Canon and mirrorless, R6. I'm not talking about R6 Mark II, R6. R6 is really do-it-all camera. Low light performance, high frames per second, autofocus and all those fancy features, 2 card slots, flippy articulated screen and everything. Like, and of course no overheating issue like R5. So R6, it's, if you own it, do not sell it. Okay, it has the deeper buffer unlike R8, even though R8 can shoot up to 40 frames per second, but it doesn't have that deeper buffer like R6. So R6 is one of the preferred choice over R5, R8, and when it comes to price, over R3. All right. So when it comes to Canon 5D Mark II and Canon R6, these are the 2 cameras. If you own it, do not sell it. Now let's jump to Fujifilm. Fujifilm are making 2 type of cameras: medium format, crop sensor. Let's talk about medium format. They have 50S, 50S Mark II, 50R. They have 100, GFX 100, and GFX 100S. Okay, so and GFX 100S Mark II. They have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 medium format cameras. But and out of these 5 medium format cameras, GFX 50, 50R, 50S2, 100, 100S, and 100S2, 6 medium format, I believe. Yeah, 6 medium format. So out of these 6 medium format, 3 of them are 102 megapixel, 3 of them are 50 megapixel. But among all these 6, when it comes to image quality, when it comes to build, when it comes to lenses that it's going to support, when it comes to 2 card slots, when it comes to the image quality was already included. When handling, ergonomics, GFX 50R is the preferred choice. If you own it, do not sell it because it's the cheapest medium format camera with 50 megapixel, high megapixel, build quality, built like a brick, literally built like a brick. Supports all the GF lenses, 2 card slots, have this IBIS, yeah, stay. IBIS, I'm not sure about, I can't remember the IBIS, I'm sorry. It doesn't have the IBIS, I believe. No, it doesn't have the IBIS. Yeah, that's why it's cheap. But the output, the image quality, it's sublime, it's supreme, trust me. I just love the output of GFX 50R. It's cheaper. It's a medium format camera and it's cheaper than most of the high-end full frame from all these 3 giants. Yes. Of course, it's not sports action, wildlife camera, but when it comes to other than sports action, wildlife, portrait, landscape, product photography, wedding, street photography, and all, you can do almost anything with that camera. GFX 50R. So if you own it, do not sell it. Okay. Now when it comes to Fujifilm crop sensor, they have the XT series, they have XH series, they have XC series, and V something, V series, no, X100 series. There is only one crop sensor from them, and which is, and that camera is literally timeless. Literally timeless. It can do video, photo, good autofocus, deeper buffer, handling, ergonomics, image quality. It checks almost everything. And that camera is XH1. If you own it, do not sell it. It's just like Nikon D4. XH1, the build quality, the ergonomics, the handling, the video and all that, it's amazing. So that was about Fujifilm. Now we're going to talk about Nikon. Of course, Nikon make two type of cameras, full frame and crop sensor. Uh, but what are the Nikon cameras which you should not sell if you own it? Uh, and so there are not one, not two, not three. Actually, there are five cameras. Okay. Actually, and I included one from the mirrorless. So that makes six cameras. First of all, let's start with the D700. D700 still to this date in 2023, October 2023. I'm making this video right now. Uh, it's still people are using it for taking images, even after 15 years of its announcement. It still holds its value. Still, people are going crazy for that camera because, again, number of megapixel, even though it's 12, but those 12 megapixel are high quality megapixel, low light, with very great low light performance, with the colors which is creating kind of a benchmark for all other cameras. Like the output from the D700 are so natural, so rich color that other cameras can't compete. Even Nikon's own cameras can't compete with D700. D700 is famous for its colors. So D700, even though it's with one card slot, but it can support battery grade, can shoot 8 frames per second. I'm talking about 15 years old. The camera, so it's crazy. Right now you can shoot 40 frames per second. That camera was originally configured to 5 frames per second, but can shoot 8 frames per second with additional battery grip and all that. But regardless of number of frames per second, the output of that camera, it's sublime. It's supreme. You can push and pull up to 12 stops of dynamic range out from more than 12 stops. Again, talking about 15 years old. Still with light, with the lens, right lens and the right light, you can make stunning images. I still use my D700 religiously. For me, it's the number one camera for me, D700. I just love that camera. Not because, not because of its the output from that camera. It's amazing. I just love the output of D700. Yeah, it comes with bulky, heaviness, and all this disadvantages. But again, when you are having the best output, one of the best low light performance, very decent and great dynamic range at a very low price. So it checks a lot of common things for normal photographers or the photographer with the low budget. So D700 fits for all these massive number of people who are looking for a full frame camera around $300. So that's why D700 is still one of the camera. If you own it, do not sell it. Next, D3S, D3S. That's again, I count it as the same camera. But if you own it, D3S, never sell that camera. Okay, number two. Number three, D4, D4S. D4, D4S, if you own it, do not sell it. The output of the D4, it's amazing. You can't clip the highlights in D4, D4S. Okay, they built like a tank, longer battery life, deeper buffer, great ergonomics. Of course, it's a flagship camera. Same goes for D3S. The output, by the way, I didn't mention that the D3S output, low light performance, 12,800 ISO maximum, and you shoot it, and it's still clean image, even at 12,800 ISO. That's because of 12 megapixel. D4 has a 16 megapixel, and that's where they shine. The output, the image quality from D4S, it's amazing. Considering the flagship camera, considering the amount of high ISO they can handle up to 25,600, okay, it's really great. So if you own it, do not sell it. It's a long term. They are the horses for the long run. D700, D3, D3S, D4, D4S. Okay. Number 4, D850. Jack of all trade, master of all trade. The best DSLR in the world. period. Sports, action, wildlife, product, landscape, wedding, street photography, events, blah blah blah. You name it, D5, D850 can nail it. Of course, it's the sports, action, wildlife, number of frames, which is 9 frames per second, is not as ideal when it comes to DSLR, like D5 or D6, who can shoot up to 12 frames and 14 frames per second respectively. Of course, D850 is, you know, it's behind all these when it comes to frames per second, but the resolution of D850 making it ideal for cropping, especially for shooting birds and wildlife. That's why people are still using D850, even though with 9 frames per second. So D850 is still having one of the best image quality after D700, one of the best shadow recovery at lower ISO. It's killing, and supports of the battery grip from without battery grip can shoot 7 frames per second, with battery grip can shoot 9 frames per second, and it has all these 153 autofocus points, so just like D5, so it's making it very convincing machine to do almost any kind of thing. If you own D850, don't even think about selling it. Last, D500, the number 5, D500. In my view, D500, it's mini D5. It has the same pixel pitch of like D850. It can do 10 frames per second. The build quality is pro level. Contains two card slots, XQDLC and SD, UHS 2, and it has the same autofocus algorithm of D5. Of course, it doesn't have the autofocus processor in D500, unlike D5, but it has the same autofocus, software which D5 are having in D500. So D500, in my opinion, if you own it, do not even think to selling it, because it's still one of the best low budget ideal camera for shooting sports action and wildlife. People who cannot afford D5 or D6 or D4S, they can go for D500 and can nail the shot. Amazing. Now that's 5 from DSLR, and the one which I am including from the mirrorless. Now there are a bunch of mirrorless cameras, but I see only one mirrorless camera from Nikon, from which is future proof. If you own it, do not sell it, and I can tell you why. There is a reason, and that camera is Z9, not Z8, Z9. Why? Look at the number of firmware updates with Z9 having, especially considering that 4.1. Z9 is basically built around a core where you can tweak the feature, where you can enhance the feature by just software update. Longer battery life, very good high ISO capability, one stop better than D850, even though the number of megapixel of D850 and Z9 is the same. It's literally the same. But Z9 SNR firmware is so advanced that if 12,800 ISO on D850 producing the amount of noise, you can use the same noise, you can produce the same noise in Z9 at 25,600. So Z9 performing one stop better. Autofocus, you know all about Z9 autofocus capability. Deeper buffer. Okay, 2 card slots. Can support any lens. Of course, the old D-type lenses and manual focus lenses cannot, but you have to do manual focus. But again, you can use it. From the ergonomics point of view, from the image output from the Z9, I wasn't expecting that it's going to be so damn good. Even though the Z9 and Z8 having the same processor, same sensor, but Z9 output is still better than Z8 because of the SNR firmware. Yes. So if you own it, don't sell it. Of course, it's a new camera, nobody wants to sell it, but maybe in future. So all these cameras, which I mentioned from Sony, A7 III, A7R III, Canon 5D Mark II. You can call 5D Mark III, but still it's pricey. 5D Mark II is cheaper, so that's where 5D Mark II wins. Then R6 from Canon. Okay, Fujifilm GFX 50R medium format, and XH1 crop sensor. Nikon D700, D3, D3S, D4, D4S, D850, D500, and Z9. All these cameras from all these brands, if you own it, don't sell it. All these cameras are timeless cameras. They have proven themselves over the period of time, not only in terms of usability, but also in terms of image output, buffer, build quality, supporting card slots, supporting lenses, ergonomics, high ISO capability. There is a long list. If you want to evaluate any camera in future, just give that camera some time and see how it performs, how the people think that camera is. Because the more people say good about any particular camera, it means that that camera is built so damn good that nobody sees the shortcoming in that camera. I mentioned all these cameras from Sony A7 III all the way to Z9. All these cameras are very good in their own capacity. If you are a Sony shooter, go with this A7 III and A7R III. Canon, I told you 5D Mark II and R6. When it comes to Fujifilm, GFX 50R, the best medium format, best affordable medium format. XH1, better than XT4, XT5. When it comes to Nikon, if you want to own the cheapest full frame, go for D700. If you want a pro feature, go for D3S. If you want the camera with premium output with flagship feeling, go for D4, D4S. When you want high resolution, D850. But if you want to shoot sports and wildlife, just like D5, but you cannot afford D5, then go for D500. When it comes to mirrorless, unfortunately there is not much from the camera which you cannot say, okay, you can have it on a long run other than Z9. All these cameras are legendary in their own capacity. All these cameras are the best because they have proven themselves over the period of time. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you guys in future with some new content. Till then, take care. Bye.